So we work closely in the UK, as you know, London. Transport for London is one of the biggest clients and infrastructures of buses, and we work with them with planning and scheduling and so on. And we are continuing to develop our relationship with TfL. And you've got some references there from the head of technology. We're closer then. When we talk about future proofing, it's not a simple case of let's go in there and give you a solution. We actually plan and process the environment you're working in. As we understand it, it monitors and moves constantly. So even though you have a big event coming soon, the FIFA World Cup, what's going to happen after that, and what can we inherit after that? So we'll work with you to form a complete solution in there, like we have with London and other places around the world. So future-proofing, it's all to do again with using the top algorithms, constantly developing our product. It does not go to sleep, and it ensures you then under certain protocols that you will have the best ability on the best in the market as we go further down the field in this relationship. Adiona, so Adiona is the planning tool for TfL. We've been awarded that over about a year ago, or nearly 2 years ago now, actually, to be honest. And what we do with that, we inherit a lot of that work within London as well. So we plan, require, we go through the process of tender work and specification modules, and obviously Nova Schedule Plus inherits all that work as well. So within the UK, there are 2 streams of development which are finally complete, which is Nova Schedule Plus and Adiona projects. And together we use Novus, which is the identical same data model. So we'll be able to crossbreed into the 2 products, which has been very beneficial for a lot of people in scheduling and planning. Transport for London, you're going down the iBus 2 route. So this is a kind of AVL process, and I'm just showing you how we integrate with iBus, AVL systems, VIX, using VDV import and export procedures in there. Another one, again, the next generation of bus hardware. Again, we're keeping on top of the hardware specification that we're able to integrate and constantly change with the technology as we go down further the field. So again, stamping the authority that future-proofing is that we'll constantly monitor and obviously work with the likes of the bus manufacturers to ensure that our software fits these protocols further down the field. Mobility as a service, you've got a global view, so we have some very big clients all around the world. And me and Pete, as we travel the world, obviously we get to see a lot of these and adopt practices and procedures. And when we bring it and we spread it around, so to speak, not as bad as the coronavirus, mind, but we spread the knowledge around. Okay. So as many has said, we learn globally and support locally. It's very important, and to reassure you now that both Pete and I will be with you in Qatar in relation to the FIFA World Cup. It's all to do with support. It's not just dumping a piece of software on your laptop and running away. We'll obviously support you all the way through changes and certain peaks, certain troughs, even down to at the moment, me and Pete are actually supporting local bus companies here during this coronavirus outbreak as well. So we're constantly on hand, so you get the solution and the expertise behind that. Okay. So being ready for the World Cup. So local transport, worldwide expertise, strong relationships. So you're all right, it's 2022, the World Cup, and we just want to be able to put you in that position where we have built a relationship with you. The system is up and running, it's been tested, we've got scenarios in the system, so when it does explode, and believe me, I was in the 2012 World Olympics in London, it will explode, and it took years and years of planning. But yeah, just get you ready at that platform. So when you do, you just flick the switch and off you go. And I'll demonstrate high level of what our solution can do in relation to the fast-paced real world of an event like this in such a short space of time. And I just said there, so we've worked and our scheduling systems have been used for these 2 big events recently. And again, without any hiccups, we've learned as well how we adapt ourselves. I've learned a lot as well from London 2012. I spent 3 years of my life planning and actually being there for the London Games and the Paralympic Games. And I'm hoping my experience would help you evolve as well during the World Cup. So some of this agenda today, we're going to talk about training and implementation. I've taken the liberty last week and I drafted an implementation plan. So if you were to sign on the line today, I will show you step by step, very high level of how we would get you to actual sign off of the product right up to the end. Okay, so I got that in there. Again, it is high level, guys. We would have really loved to have been with you and gone through the process. What we normally tend to do, this would be a high level demonstration today. The next step would be, so if you're engaged, we will definitely start putting in a lot of your routes and scenarios into the system and working alongside schedulers. So we like to work at that kind of level at the bottom there with Trevor and his team, so to speak. So we really get the sense of the system and start firing scenarios off. Then in theory, then you'll have a parallel run before we kick off with anything. Reporting as well. With anything to do with reporting, we have standard reports, bus boards, duty boards, mileage reports. But again, a lot of reporting work, as you know, with bespoke. So we tend to mirror what you currently have at the moment or adjust what you would like in the future. And the kind of benefits to yourself then of the system would be cloud-based solution, very quick, very adaptable, fully supported. And as you know, we'll go through that during the demonstration. Okay, so the journey around the world, what that simply means is, very quickly, the last slide, is that we tend to use a lot of reference sites, a lot around the world. Each country is different, the way they approach the bus industry, which is it's very intriguing, actually, to be honest. I mean, we have got the pleasure of seeing all this. So you'll see a lot in this demonstration now, little bits of what we've learned and what we can pull together. And no doubt we will sit around you on the table. We can obviously express what we've learned as well and make you a kind of better process data management when it comes to systems like this. Okay. Here we go. So it's all to do with dashboards, and you will see some of the dashboards in here. Again, these are highly configurable, and these will be built during implementation, and it all depends what you want to see on the screens. It's all to do with your cost, it's all to do with the allocation and your resource, and again, it's all to do with very quickly as well. We understand now is when you're a scheduler, you're more of a data compiler more than anything else, and these results need to be seen, validated, signed off, and on the road immediately. So we do the dashboards, again, with the scenarios as well. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop here. I'm actually going to go onto the system itself, and you could start seeing it for yourself. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's go to the menu. As you can see here, we just simply gone into Google Chrome. We've just put in the URL, which is the current URL which you will possibly have, and we've got some menu structures. Now these are very configurable using the customization tool here, and I can drag and drop anything over. It's important at this stage is that when you've got tier systems in your organization, you'll have a super user which will have access to all, then you'll have your users and all the way down to the bottom where obviously you can nurture the system as you see fit. Interfaces, very important that we have done a lot of work on VDV, and that's all up and running and working. We've got a lot of rail data import functionality there, shape files and Leo data files as well. We do a lot of importing of blocks and exporting of schedules. So that would be during the implementation phase that we'll take your existing workings and import it into our system. So that will really help during the transition. We got stock management as well around Qatar there. We'll extract what we can for local government to put it into the system. We have affairs module as well, publicity module, and we have some reports. Going down future proofing as well, we've got a report designer where you'll be able to design your own reports moving on down the future, okay? And then at the left hand side here, we just got a public route, and we're going to go down this in a logical process. We're going to tackle routes, vehicles, duties, and roster in that process, okay? And I'm going to show you some of the benefits that you will have from there. Okay, doing the routes. So I've just opened up a route. It's very important to stress at the moment with any kind of routes in here, especially because it's a cloud system, you can always copy and move forward. So if you're in the Olympics and you need a route change, you don't actually change any of the archive data. That stays. You save as you would do an Excel document, and you move on and you modify and tweak. So on the left-hand side here, this is just a simple route going through London here with all the stops on the left-hand side showing timing points as clocks and relief points then as the green icons here. Okay, again, this is very configurable. We can change the text. It can come in Arabic and any other countries as well. We do cope a lot with different languages, and we can express that in here. Going across the top here, we'll be able to modify the patterns as well, keeping an eye on mileage, again, miles and kilometers, and we've got some integrity built in as well. So if the machine does not like some of the route processes, it will give you a thumbs down, meaning that the route is not viable. It's got an infraction in there, and it'll allow the scheduler to gauge himself, and he can go back and extract that or go past the route and so on. Anything in this system is always copy and paste. So again, once you've done the full bulk, you'll be able to run it constantly in there. And if I go to here, there, I can new, I can extract, and I can actually clone another pattern as well. And the pattern is between us all. I don't know if you use patterns in Qatar, is the fact that it's just a mimic of timetable journeys through there. Okay. We go on to running times then. So we've got running time bands. I've cleared this scale at the moment, but these are all my running times that will feed a timetable. Now, there can be two ways. You can manually edit them if you wish and type over, or again, let the machine do it. Let the machine extract the data from the timetables, which is this screen here. And I'm just going to click on the outbound direction at the moment. Again, just focusing on the thumbs up, which means that your timetable actually is compliant with your run times. Very important. So again, that catches the user as a go. Integrity is very important to us, and the information, and it just machine allows you in real time to make sure that everything is matching in the background data fields. This is again similar timetable, very high frequency, as you can imagine, in the UK. In London, normally every 2 minutes is the norm. So you can see these are drastically in there, and it just shows the bottom that you've got your miles or kilometers as well, and you've got your direction of division. If I double click on that, these are the tools at the bottom, which would allow you to build timetables from scratch very quickly, just by going at 6 o'clock in the morning and selecting a headway and let the machine do the work based on the run times. You've got copy functions as well, so you'll be able to copy it from a Monday to Friday to Saturday to a Sunday. You've got freeze, you've got regeneration of the timetable as well, which means if you are out slightly on your timetable, you'll be able to regen it from the run times. Renumber as well, very important if you want to go down the journey routes. Selection criteria allows you to select individual routes to delete, purge, or change. You've got some shift as well, so I can shift any of these timetables back or forward by any kind of number, which I mean. I want to shift that back there. And if I just minimize this and I select that, and as you can see that it actually changed that 6, 16, 17 there. Just minimize that, bring it up a little bit more. There we go. And if I bring that back, push that forward, and it just brings it back there. And then this timetable, as you can see, very robust. I'm using my mouse here, and I can double click on things. I can just select certain things. So it's very, very user friendly and proactive in here. Going down another scale then, which is this one, we also got a graph approach at this stage as well. Here we go. If you're looking at high level headway, it's very easy and very useful to see in this graphical representation here. So in here, you'll just see simply the timetable above and the pattern of headway. You can now, at the same time, use both directions. And that should populate in a sec. And then you should see, obviously, 2 directions at the same time here. And again, you can maximize and minimize this as much as you want in here. Again, this is just kind of a good way of looking at things. This is normally based on our macro elements or ostrix. We like to use a more graphical approach moving forward, and you'll see that further down the line in the system. Notes and history is very important as well. In the history tab here, we have them. If you are a super user or an administrator of this system, you'll be able to go back and find out who actually changed what, at what time, what user, and what computer. That gives you that kind of sense check who's done what. And it's very important to have that, especially when you're working on a high level system like this with multiple users on a platform, that you need to know who's done what on there. All right, go back to the main menu. We're going to focus on route schedules going forward. So route schedule which is this one. So let's give you a scenario. You have one of your stadiums in the Olympics, and that's probably, say, 20 routes in there that we've compiled. The routes are segmented and they put to the side. Now, what we tend to do here, we create a schedule, and this is where the bread and butter comes into it. A schedule is simply an empty bucket, and we tell it what to put in. So if I go to routes, I select my route, the machine starts populating all these screens because it knows from the timetable that it's a Sunday service, it's a Saturday service. It knows when it's running to and from, the calendars will start populating. It knows what depot it's from as well, from there. So moving forward as well with the deadheads, it just knows because the timetable is starting to feed the system. This is where the automated response comes into it. So once I have got a schedule, I put a operating date in there, put a calendar in there, I fed it with some routes, I can then start looking at some blocks. And if I go straight to the source and I work my way back, there we go there, block statistics, brilliant. Okay, so this is the standard. So let me just digest this for you very quickly. So we have in here a blocking element to the left. These were originally on the right hand side and I dragged them over manually, and I can use optimization as well. So in here simply is block 3210, and it goes, pulls out and it pulls back in at 2101, and you can see the different journeys that bus actually takes there. If you want to go down more of a general view, you actually see a very basic graph here, but you can actually move the graph going forward. So you have the graph element here, which then you can actually start tweaking the stops and starting to move the stops around in a more graphical approach there. We do at this stage, and I will definitely show you when we come over, is the schedule pad, where we have redesigned these graphs and we put it onto an iPad, which will allow you to walk around any location using any 4G or 5G networks, and you'll be able to create blocks, vehicle workings on an iPad. Going to go to stats, very important as well. This gives you a high level view of your stats. We know I blocked 13 vehicles, there's 165 trips in there. This is my revenue versus my dead running. This is my distance. This is my trips that are covered. And it gives me in miles and kilometers, the revenue and dead up on top there. And these feed the KPIs as well, which is very important moving forward. Again, with this, if you go up on the top left, save as, and it's all to do with the quick turnaround and terminology in this. So these are my scenarios, and if I want to create another one, I just go to new and I create a brand new one on the same data, and I'll just reship it around like that very, very quickly. So if I need to pump out some vehicle workings the next day, it's already there. And if I do that very quickly, if I go back into general view, standard, and we've got the optimizing tools as well. So in here, we've got a lot more room as well for electric vehicles. This is where we put some of the constraints in here as well. And this is how the machine works. So if I go down to something that you would understand, like here we go, number of blocks. Let's say I want 14 blocks in there. You can actually stipulate the minimum and maximum layovers and deadhead, and a percentage of arcs if you wish. You can come here and you can say I want an interline, I want to actually churn this out by vehicle type only, and you click OK, and it actually then produces the driver duties, sorry, the vehicle workings on the spot there, and it produces that. At the minute we're running tests, and we've gone as far as 10,000 vehicles at the moment, and the machine just simply keeps on going and going. So performance wise, it's really impressive at the moment with the amount of data in there that we can throw at it. So going back from there, once you have finally created your vehicle workings, we go on to the next step and we throw that into the duty cutting procedure there, where we actually create some duties. But before we do that, this is how the system talks to each other. Can you see the actives button there? And you've got the red A. It's when you're happy with a block set and you want to move it forward, when you activate it, that will obviously activate the API in the background, and that will feed it to the next stage. And it's very important because as we go to the next stage, an allocation, that you'll be able to find out actually how this is going to stitch together from an IT perspective. So I'm going to go on to duties. Just log in for a second, just fill me up for a minute. Here we go. Right, so quick, simply around the screen for the schedulers. I can see the schedulers popping up now. This is the bread and butter of it all. First thing I did was go into here and I selected the sign up and the division and the combination and so on in here. Now, because I've selected it, it's thrown up These are the duties on the right hand side I need to cut, and these are the duties that I've already put through the algorithm at the moment. All right, so let's focus on duty 1 here. It's a 2-part duty. It's got a duty type of P call, and there's the from and start time there. If I want to be clever, I can bring up the costings, and it's actually showing me what the costings and the efficiency of that duty is moving forward. Very similar with the rest. If I want to focus on everything else, I can go to the costings, and it gives me the costing of all the schedule, and you've got the running bar at the bottom, which will give you the efficiencies, your platforms. You can go into here as well, and you'll obviously see some graphs. So this is the distribution of your duty types moving forward in here as well. Going back to classical view, what we have as well, what we're going around is this visual, and it's all to do with the graphs there. So as you highlight over, it pops up the contents of that graph. There's a couple of great things we like to do in here. The way it's planned out like this, because this will be on an iPad, so schedulers will be able to use this, walk around the depot, and be able to simply click on it, and you can drop or drag. We've got something called show legal moves, and I click on that. What it's done is looked into the parameters, and it says you can only move these between these runs here against your parameters. You turn that back off, and then from here I can run a costing from here as well on that one, and I can renumber. I can add extra piece. I can view reliefs as well on this, and I can switch the reliefs off, and I can give it another whirl as well. Go to costings, and again, unfreeze and freeze and unhook. If there are certain duties, especially during the Olympics, that needs to be frozen, needs to be placed in stone, click those, and then whatever you do with the algorithm, it just will not touch that section of duty in there. Parameters. Work and payrolls. Let's go to work role. Here we go. And if I quite cleverly just take some of these out, so these are my duty types. So it shows you, in theory, we are running about a back end of 50 duty types. That's 50 different drivers that can be placed in here. So I've got a driver type which is town, and a driver which is a Sunday. And just by simply toggling the switches, I'll be able to turn on the algorithm parameters. So work includes pay breaks, and we've got all these here. I purposely put these in place purely because I want to show you what we can do, and more importantly, what we can take away. So when we go through the implementation stage, we simply go through these parameters, and if we do not touch any of these, we simply hide them in the background. So it's a lot easier for users to go and work around this as well. Report rules as well. Garage report first piece, garage report extra piece, and we've got all these juicy little bits that I like to call the parameters. We start putting some figures in as well. So let's go to spread time, which is another big one. Again, let's bring these so you can just focus on, let's just focus on one for now. Let's focus on a Sunday driver. And there we are there. And then you've got a maximum spread time of 12 hours. You can change that if you wish. Just double click in. And more importantly as well, if you want to get really clever, not many people use these, but these are penalties. So you can actually tell the system that, yeah, I want 12 hours, but if you go over 12 hours, I'm going to penalize you by $10,000. And that's the way that we control the algorithm, and that's important. Many of our competitors just like to put in maximum and minimums and let it run. But we like to give the schedulers some scope and some manual intervention, so you can actually control the algorithm and the parameters to an extent where you will get probably the best results. And as you progress down this road as well, you'll just get better and better. And more importantly, all parameters are saved in the background, and you can save and load parameters, and you can give them to the next depot or the next iteration or the next scenario. Settings. Everything's driven back in the background in settings. These are your run types. These are your run type categories. We got run type scenarios, so we can activate them as well as turn them off. We can update reliefs. We can go into the properties, and we can put in Google analytical keys in there. We can change some of the base functionality as well as anything else, and we can customize workspace, and we can configure properties as well. So I'm not necessarily saying that you will all have the same screens, and we'll obviously work with the likes of Trevor, and we will give you what you need to do your job. Going back to classical, and how we simply run cut is this button here. This is the powerhouse. When I click this button, it will focus on the algorithm, and the parameters, and it will produce you a set of results. And one of the reasons why we got depth and effort is because if you are in the World Cup and you need to print or perform duties, and as you can imagine, you will probably do 20 cuts an hour. In the Olympics, we did do potentially 20 cuts an hour over the course of 4 days, 24 hours. So in theory, over the course of 3 days, we produced 78 schedules an hour, in theory, which was colossal. Now we can, if you wish, click on serious, and just think of a submarine. The algorithm as a submarine, how quick do you want it to dive and how deep do you want it to dive into? So in this case, quick would be sufficient. It will look at your parameters very quickly and off it goes, and it'll produce you a half decent result. Go to normal then, and it will look at all parameters, and it will use the iteration process as well. It will go in and it will just feed and feed and feed until it comes to it. I give you an example. If I wanted to cut 10,000 duties on here, which we have done tests in the past, it will take 4.5 minutes. That's 10,000 duties. So that's how quick it is. We use two algorithms in the background, MB2, Macro and Blockbuster, and we put them together with these there. Two different algorithms playing together, it performs market-leading results, and it has done. We've got a button here which is running the kit till no cost improvement, where you just simply exhaust the system. Again, we're only talking minutes here, not hours. Once you've finalized and tweaked some of your runs and you're happy with it, you can see here this becomes red and it asks you to save. So you can actually save this scenario. And this is the important part. When this is ticked, available across Trapeze products, that will make this come alive, and that will then throw it to the roster. That will make it available in allocation as well. So again, only this scenario that you have run and you're totally happy with, that you'll be able to forward on to the next person. With that in mind then, I'm just going to go to roster. This is a simple roster I made this morning, and again, very simple aspect of this roster is you can put your rest days. It's built on template design as well, so I could put my rest days in a pattern, and it produces that as we go down. And each roster then is simply filled, and I can swap and change if I wish using the right click in there. I can lock cells, swap shifts, swap rotors, and exchange lines. More importantly as well, when we come to reports, and we'll touch on a bit there when we pass over to Pete. So we've got more of a roster design. We can, in theory, again, high volume rosters, select a roster for the World Cup. For it. I think each stadium will probably have a roster in there, and we'll be able to throw that, and we'll be able to use an algorithm again within roster to algorithm all your rosters at once, which again is very rare in this kind of industry at the moment. Going back to the menu options here, we got schedule KPIs. So in here, it just simply shows you, again, as you can imagine, in Trevor's position, so to speak, when you have all these schedulers doing all these iterations in the World Cup, someone needs to stand back and say, well, who's doing what? What's actually this journey doing? And this shows you in layman terms what he or she is doing there. If I pick one which has a block set, let's try this one. Yes, have a look. Here we go. Okay, so I've selected this run or route here, which is 418. It says, right, this one's on a Sunday, Saturday, Monday and Friday. And these are my routes in question. And there's my block plan, which I'm going to bring up here. It's noted here and there. So what it tends to do is simply gives you a high level. Only certain people will see this screen moving forward. And you can then report directly from here if you wish. Okay, give you a bird's eye view. As we go along then to the Report Designer and Report Explorer, we've got all these reports, probably too many, and we can purge them out again in here. So if I go to route information, the route mileage here, the report are really basic to use, and we're proud of that we've built it this way. This is the main box where you put your information and data in. On the right hand side gives you a description of what it actually does. You can actually have this report to run at 2 o'clock in the morning. So you can have a schedule running for this report at 2 o'clock. And any archives. So anybody who's printed off reports can go back in here and just take out the reports that has been run over the course of the last year. The outputs then, very important. So if you want to produce a mileage report or a working timetable, you can either Excel, Word, RTF, HTML, and CSV, or PDF. all these different functionalities that we can do. That's our integration to other systems. Again, we can add more as well. If we find that you have a certain way of our output structure, we can put that in as well. And some of the reports, very quickly, we have what we have here, bus board. So this is a kind of bus board that we use in the UK, very standard formality, and this will actually be on the bus itself, and it gives you your pull out or the garage and your little bits of work, and it actually tells the driver where he or she should go with the blind numbers and the mileages and the stop data as well. Duty board is where the driver has the board itself. So this is what the driver does in the morning. He signs on at 4:41 and he does his bits of work on there. I don't know what you're going to use in the Olympics, but these are standard reports in the system, which can either be fed directly and printed out, given to drivers, or if you're using machines like Ticketer, you can actually have the CSV and put it into the ticket machine system, and it will prompt the driver as he or she travels along down the road. So that's the kind of reports we have in this system. Okay, right, I'm going to pass it over to my friend Pete. I'm going to just swap the screens over, where he's going to show that we as planning and schedulers have done our bit. We've got vehicle workings, timetables, we've got a great set of duties. Now we need to throw them over to operations to actually operate on the day and add drivers to those days. I'm just going to swap my screen.
Okay, thanks guys. I'll just put you on the correct screen. Bear with me a moment. Is it my desktop? Okay, so can you see that okay, Gav, on your screen?
So, yeah. Okay.
So what I wanted to start with was just by saying, Gavin mentioned there that we're all around the world with this, and we have it in many different locations. To put that into perspective, we're probably about 85% of the UK market is using the duty allocation section of this. And what we mean by duty allocation is that once Gavin's system, the work that Gavin does, his area of expertise is scheduling, mine is duty allocation. So once that's completed, it becomes available then for you to be able to actually give the work to the drivers. The screen that you can see at the moment is the driver portal, where the driver can, I don't want you to think that the driver touches your data. This is a representation of what the driver's got. So we'll very quickly have a look at this. This is this part of the system is called on board, because we believe our drivers are on board with us and with our system. And what they can do here, as you can quite clearly see, is look at those duties that the systems that Gavin has just been explaining to us, drill into them, find out where they're supposed to be, find out when they're taking over, where they're taking over, what's their duty content for the day. There's lots of other things that they can do, and the reason I show you this part first is because all of the other pieces that I show you transpose through to a place where the driver can see what's going on. It's very much about awareness and transparency. Of course, it's all user definable, so what you want the driver to be able to see is exactly what he can see. So if there are things like certain pieces of information or messages that you don't want to be brought through, then obviously you have the parameters to control that. So very, very quickly, we don't have a lot of time today. I would very much enjoy being able to show you this in a lot more detail, but we saw the today screen, so that is the driver's sign-on status. We saw the upcoming duties, so we'll be able to see any duty for as long as you want him to be able to see them. Messages, other information, for example, have we got the current driver details? Can we let the driver know what his leave information is? For example, how many holidays has he taken, how many has he got left, etc. We can bring to the attention things like skill sets and qualifications that the driver needs to be aware of that are perhaps coming to a renewal or an expiry. And there are lots of other things that I don't want to spend too long on this today because there's so much that I want to get through to you. But everything here from his name and address right through to the hours that he earned in the previous week. So with that in mind, if we have a quick look at the actual back-end system, so if you imagine, obviously this will be Windows and cloud-based. If we were to look at Gavin's rota that Gavin just explained to us about building rosters and rotas. That will eventually come over to the allocation side of the system and be represented like this. We can see all the drivers' names and numbers, and we can see the days of the week across the top. Obviously, these will be tailored to your operation. If your week starts on a Saturday or a Monday or whatever, obviously that's when it will start. The operators can drill straight down into the duty. There's lots of functionality for them here, but this particular piece will let them drill into that duty that the system Gavin just showed you. And you can get the detail, you can get the payments, you can get all sorts of granular coding and reporting pieces of information. One of the key things here is that we want the system to deal with the payments. We don't really want any interpretation. What I mean by that is that once you've gone to all that hard work in the schedules and the planning, we bring that over to the duty side, and we don't then really want human intervention to be changing those payments, changing those the duty lengths, etc., unless we have to. And if we do change anything, we want the system to have a bespoke set of rules for your organisation sitting under the bonnet that will take care of all that adjustment. For example, let's say that we have a driver, he's drove for X amount of hours, and then he has to drive for an extra 30 minutes because of road conditions, late running, etc. And if that was the duty there, we've made it very easy where we can just right click and enter a late running function. Then what we want the system to do is automatically know what the payment should be based on how late he was. We don't want controllers having to go to that intervention or interpretation, because if you've got a team of 7 controllers, each one of them may interpret it differently. What we really want is for the business to be dictating how we pay, how we organise. Let's have a quick look at some of the screens. As I say, it's a very complex system in terms of it's very rich in its functionality. If we click on, don't expect you to remember where these icons are, guys. It's not a training session, but I've just hit the unallocated work icon. This is a screen that your allocators will probably have open all day, every day, because it's monitoring the work that becomes open. In particular, if you were thinking about the football, we'd want to know exactly when a piece of work wasn't covered. In my, as I said to you when I introduced myself, 12 years at Trapeze, but 25 years running bus depots. And if you lose sight of what is happening on the road, then you may as well pack up. What I mean by that is it's the people who need transporting that is important to us. That's where where our product really meets the sharp end. So these, when they appear in this box, means that if you don't do something about them, they won't be covered, and this is on the day. So very quickly we can just we can see that if I highlight this piece of work, we know who it belonged to, we know why it's there. In this particular case, it used to belong to this individual here, and it's in there because it's got an S marker. S, I happen to know in my database, means sick. You could of course have the full word sick there. If that's blue and if that's blue, this is on a Monday, so we've got someone there who's a rest day. This is how easy it is to make sure work is covered. The duty that is open is blue. We've got someone on a rest day there that is blue. And we hit another icon. And then at that split second, it checked all the legalities, all the skill sets and all the preferences to say, I can give this person that piece of work. So that's very quickly how you do an on-the-fly allocation of work. But it needs to be better than that. What's happening in a forward allocation situation, and normally, I'll state it out for the UK if you like, the UK tend to work 3 weeks in advance. So we use auto allocation to look at, let's have a look at all the work that is open. Let's have a look at our available employees, and let's consider all the skill sets, let's consider all the preferences, all the legalities, etc., etc., and make sure that as much of the work that we can cover is automatically covered for us. And that's great in an ideal world moving forward, but every now and then you're going to have drivers go sick, particularly in the unprecedented situation that we have at the moment around the world. We're supporting our clients with this product because we've got a lot of drivers on the sick at the moment, and not just because they are sick, because some of them are having to isolate because their families are vulnerable, etc., etc. So we need to be in a position where we can immediately react to that, and we've got a piece of functionality within the duty allocation system that will. The reason that took a few seconds to open is because it was looking at the work that I'd selected in the unallocated work box, and then it was looking at what staff I've got that could cover that piece of work. And there's lots of things to consider here. Obviously, we've already said it's considering skill sets, it's considering legalities and such. Now this is looking at things like, right, who's resting right now? Who's spare right now? Who's volunteered? Remember at the beginning of this presentation, I showed you the driver portal. Well, there's a screen in there where drivers can volunteer. They can volunteer for the whole day. They can volunteer for portions of the day. They can volunteer just for particular pieces of route or particular skill sets. So DAS, I refer to it as DAS duty allocation system, needs to be able to analyse who's available for what and how long have I got them for, when did they last drive, when will they be driving again, and all those sorts of things. So as I said, it's a very rich system, and it would be very difficult for me to show you absolutely every piece of functionality. But I am open to questions. I want you to challenge me if there's a piece of functionality that you guys particularly need to know about in the DAS system. One thing I do want to share with you though, Gavin mentioned reports. Reports are very, very important, obviously. Important for planning and very important for allocation, because the plan can be perfect and you guys can go to a lot of trouble of making that plan as efficient and as accurate as you can, and once it gets into the allocations hands, we can turn that upside down for you. So we have something in the duty allocation system that is monitoring that for us in real time, if you like, and we call this Dash. What Dash is doing, it's actually monitoring a key set of metrics. I'll just quickly run through some of these for you. So the duty allocation system lets drivers electronically sign on, and they can do that at the depot or they can do that remotely with smartphones, etc. So we know in real time that we've had 9 drivers sign on. I mean, you can put this on the wall, on a TFT, on a screen, or people can sign into it. Managers, this is a manager's tool that they get to log into. 9 drivers have signed on, 4 of them were late, so we'll deal with that with one of the many reports and inquiry tools that we have within the system. If we scroll down slightly, we can see the balance between spare and open work. So what we mean by that is, if we were losing work throughout the day because of incidents, let's say we've got the football kicked off and all of a sudden we realise that we need more vehicles, or we've got people reporting sick, or we've got drivers late, etc. This part of the screen there will tell us that we've got green is open work and blue is the staff that we've got to cover that. If I scroll down slightly more, we can see the sort of additional hours that we're suffering there. So this is a very simple one. It's usually far more complex than this in the UK, but this is suggesting that we've got overtime is a build up to extra hours that we're having to find. We've got some late running, and it'll break it down per duty. Central, Main and MH are different depots, so you'd be able to have a very transparent image straight away in real time of what's happening across all of your depots. Cancelled duties are very important. We can see straight away here, as the allocators are, if they are cancelling work, which is a taboo in most of our clients, because we don't cancel work until it's at the very end of the duty. You know, we want to be able to, we have a saying in the UK, I don't know if you guys do, we want to be able to keep moving bums as much as we possibly can. We want bums on seats and moving them as much as we can. We have a very transparent view of the absences as they're happening, and we can see here there's things like accidents, assaults, holidays, maternity, sickness, and unauthorised absence, and we can see the hours that are being generated by that, the type of hours, and in the depots that it's happening to. Here's the very clever thing about the duty allocation system though. If you see a number amongst any of these metrics that you don't like, then we're able to drill straight into that immediately. So imagine now that you're a manager, you've seen an item there that is, concerning you. This is now drilling into that information so that we can say, okay, I need to know more about that. I need to know on let's say week 34. Let's go right back to week 34, 2017. And I only want to know about it for a week. And what I'm going to do, I just need to move that out of the way, hit that. And there you go, you've got your metrics there. You've almost got like a balance sheet. At the moment, that's showing it for the whole of the organisation. If we pick on one and say, CPC in the UK is all about Certificate of Professional Competence, so we've sent some drivers for training there. That could be something like sickness, it could be unused spare, etc., etc. We're going to drill into that figure now, and if we say, I need to know more about that, if we double click that, that'll go into the individual depots then. So now those numbers may have got smaller, but they're broken down. You can see central depot, main depot. I'm still concerned about these numbers, so now I can double click again and even drill into now as far down as the driver. So imagine all of these transactions that are happening all the time. Gavin and his system has created the best plan. Duty allocation system, that plan is being changed on an hourly or even a minute basis, where we want to be able to put out the best product we can. So we need to know, imagine the power now of the managers dialing in from home, being able to say they know a particular individual got paid or was sick reporting for a number of hours. That's a very powerful thing that you won't use very often. You get to a situation where the operators in the garage think, I know that everybody can see what I'm doing, everybody that matters, that is. So what I would like to do at that, because I realise that I've got about 5 minutes left of the hour that we had, by no means have I showed you even the tip of the iceberg of the functionality within the duty allocation system. So I wondered if I could open. Yeah, I was going to open.
What we want to do, obviously, we'd like some questions, but let me just finish this off with just showing you an implementation plan.
The exports, the interfaces, can they be user created on the fly, or must you guys sort of write them beforehand?
Well, we got most there. So you see there, Trevor, we've hopefully captured most of what we've seen in the world, so to speak. When we come to VDV, for instance, once that is time, someone got some feedback there. No, someone just come in with the microphone thing on. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, in these, Trevor, these are obviously predefined, and when we go through the workshop process as well, obviously we will make sure that that we capture most of these, then we put these into an implementation plan moving forward. But we are confident, I'm confident that we've got most of what you need here, based on other sites within the Middle East and Europe as well.
That said, we will rely on the specification exercise to determine the detail of the interface.
Yep.
Okay, we don't want to mislead you into thinking, well, they said it was all fine and they had everything, and until we see the specification details, we can then give a very specific response on that.
Yeah.
That's good. And how about electric vehicles? Is there scope for on-the-fly charges and so forth?
I'll let you know where we are with electric vehicles. So we are teamed up with Cambridge University, and we work with Siemens and Hitachi, and we're using our current blocking algorithm to cope with the electric vehicles. Let me give you an example. So we put in patronage, yesterday's passenger numbers, the gradient of the routes, the season, so is it hot or cold, or is it summer, they're going to use air conditioning. We also going to use allocation as well to determine if the driver has a right heavy foot, and all that feeds in it. So we've gone down to the bare maths of it, to 1 kilowatt per kilometre, which is supposed to be a good radius. It's like 50 miles per gallon kind of radius there. So we've already started that work there. It's already in there. Until someone has got the electric fleet, we'll obviously switch that on, and we'll turn the algorithms right up to cope with the gradient of routes and so on. So what we have seen with electric vehicles that we have scheduled is that, well, I can share this. We've looking at the layover, trickle charge points in layovers at the end of terminuses normally, but we have found that electric vehicles run routes a lot faster, because if you look at if you stand at the bus stop, and you see electric vehicle take off, it's insane. It's like a rocket. It hits 30 mile an hour in a second. Then diesel buses are obviously. So what we have found is that when you go to the layover, we were also tweaking the layovers to make sure they got 15-minute charge. But we said, Christ, they're getting there 5 minutes earlier. So obviously it's good learning curve for us actually. We've been working in the UK with a Real for the last 5 years with a pilot in Milton Keynes. And you know, even now the battery itself, which Hitachi said was should be dead, is still running full capacity. So we're constantly learning. So that's another thing where with you, we'll scope out your electric fleet. And we know you have a couple of hundred buses for the World Cup. I want to put that into the system straight away and really bringing up that juice and showing you the results. And you'll be quite surprised, actually. They're not as bad as they seem. Like, again, battery manufacturers and not using the battery no more than 25% and all this malarkey. So the system allows you to produce some colossal what-if scenarios. So that'll be interesting to work with you on that. But it's already in there already.
Right.
Because one of the problems that we're facing at the moment is that it's not only the electric vehicles that need recharging. We've got a problem with our diesel fleet, that the tank capacity isn't sufficient for the diesel buses to operate all day. So it's not only electric buses needing recharging, it's diesel buses needing refueling.
Oh, that's good. That's really interesting, actually. I think you're the second person in my living memory who said that. That's really interesting. So, as you would normally say, they either go back to manufacturers, but what we do is that we create scenarios to ensure that it passes the depot for refueling. I don't know during the World Cup if you're going to have outstation fuel. We don't know, but all these little points and relief points can be structured into the schedule to ensure that that bus gets at that location for refueling at a particular time. So if we can add that in, so that wouldn't necessarily be a depot or a break point. That could be like a refueling station, and that be incorporated into the network. So that's something I would work with you on that as well.
Okay. When you were showing the timetable, it seems to be already created. How easy is it to create a timetable?
Yep, so seconds. So what I'd like to do, and this is something going further into this week, if you would like to obviously me to demonstrate that to you one-on-one or in the group, we can definitely do that. Timetables takes absolute seconds to do. Once you've got the run times in the background, it's there. So I will definitely would like, if you wish, another WebEx and go around and show you how I actually redesign these from scratch using these functionalities at the bottom, the build tools there. Okay. But yeah, normally a timetable with a 2-minute headway, 24-hour timetable over a 36-hour period, it takes seconds, absolute seconds to do in here once the run times are all in place. Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the rostering, I think you said that you would put the rest days of the drivers in. Is that a manual function, or does the system just automatically allocate?
Yep, so in here you got, these are my templates, and you can use a template if you wish. So I've stretched this template over the course of a week in here, and when I go into roster, I create a 100-line roster. It will just reiterate that pattern throughout there, so it will just be done in there. But yeah, there is a manual and automated process to this as well. Yeah.
Okay, because the system we currently use, it basically will give rest days at random, or we just select the rest day that that specific driver will have, and it takes the all of the duties around that.
Yeah, this does both as well. Absolutely does both. So these are the 5 algorithms which will work that. So you can, if you want, create a lottery and throw in the duties and then just fill the blanks with rest days. That's totally fine. Or you want a more structured approach, we do that as well. So the algorithm here, we generate the roster first, then we minimize the number of lines, so it squeezes the roster down, again, using your parameter set in the background and your illegal rest breaks as well. Then we can level the workload if you wish, giving everybody, for instance, 8-hour duties a day, or we can equal it, or we can make it different as well. So you can actually have an evening, afternoon work, and you can zigzag the approach on there. So yeah, there's a lot in here with the roster, which obviously I enjoy to do. And again, you can simply just go back and drop and drag into the cells as well. So two ways of doing things. We like Intrapeze, and it's very important. I used to be a scheduler for many, many years. And I don't particularly like just having one button and pressing the button and go. I'm like to be more analytical. I want to know and understand why it's giving me that result. So it's very important that while we offer an automated solution, it can always be manipulated by a scheduler, because there's no computer on planet Earth at this moment in time that can give anybody a decent set of schedules yet. So I'll be out of a job. So that's going to come in the next 50 years' time at least.
One of the other issues we have here is that the drivers are paid a monthly salary based on a 60-hour working week, which is basically an 11-hour day with 1 hour unpaid meal break. How would Trapeze be able to schedule drivers' duties based on a calendar month? Bearing in mind we've got 28, 30 and 31.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll create schedules by day, if you wish. We'll cover the standard day section. Once we create that and the roster for the working week, you can have the roster that will drop down a line. But when it comes to allocation, that's where it will obviously work in there. And Peter can elaborate on that.
Yeah. So we, as I said during that brief demonstration, a huge part of this is the bespoke set of payroll rules that will sit under the bonnet. Should we be lucky enough to work with you on this project, we'd sit with you and specify and bespoke what you want those rules to do. If I was to sit, and we often do each year, we have a forum and all of our clients around the table. Every client has got a different set of rules and multiple sets of rules. It's not a part of the project to be taken lightly, because you want, as I said during my demo, you don't want interpretation. You want, when the conditions kick in, the conditions to fire the same rule every time, first time, right.
Yeah, so we'll schedule the work to cover the vehicles, then we roster them accordingly. And what Pete said, then as we go along the line, then the allocation side of it will ensure that they've got the guaranteed 60 hours in the bag with no makeup, hopefully. And then from there, it'll be paid accordingly, then using the rule system within the allocation.
Okay. Another issue we're facing at the moment is the duties themselves, getting the meal breaks to be as we require. Have you ever had a problem creating schedules, giving the meal breaks?
Absolutely not. No, and this is where the parameters will come into play on here. We have a lot of parameters on here. Let's be specific and load it up, discard that. When it comes to parameters and again penalties, that we can put the base, minimum and maximums, that's fine, but we can actually tell it then what time of day you actually want the meal to run, and again what duration. Then you can actually penalize the system as well. So when we come to extra meal break times, so okay, here we go. Let's go to platform. Yeah, piece platform time. So we have different breaks in the system here. This is one of them. So we actually give a minimum maximum. So this is the piece. So this is the kind of your cigarette break or your cup of tea break, so to speak. And then you come into the cumulative break pay then. So we use a cumulative as well as standard break. And then we'll be able to tell the system in high level is simply how long is the break. Can't go over that threshold, and actually roughly what time of day do you want it. And we can use the penalty structures then to ensure the algorithm will not be a clever, because what we will tend to find is that, as you're coping with it at the minute, is that it will produce you 1 hour break unpaid, but then you just haven't got control of what part of the day you want it on. But we do that here by breaking it down by piece platform time. Okay, so the system will know you'll go out and do a 4.5 hour piece of work, you'll have a 1 hour unpaid break, and then he'll do another section then in the afternoon, which will bring him up to his 11 hours working day.
Right. You say that you were mentioning day. Do you mean shift or?
Shift, yes.
Yes.
Yes, shift, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, shift time, yeah. Shift break, here we go. Yeah, so we have a good example. So we have a threshold here. 50 hours is the one which turns off the actual parameters, but the minimum of 35-minute break here. He's only allowed one shift break a day. And then you can actually say, what's the earliest break start time? What's the latest break start time? And this is for driver P call. The next driver then, I don't know if you have any driver duty types, or do you just have one driver type? Is that something you can answer now?
Nope.
No.
You don't have the different duty types?
No, we don't have different duty types.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. And in the UK, as you can imagine, we have a senior and a junior, then a guy who does coach work and so on. So
Many grades,
yeah, different grades. So that's how the system would cope with that there. And you got the minimum shift break as well. So yeah, really looking forward to obviously make sure that doesn't happen. Okay.
Okay. Right. What we've discussed here at the moment is the drivers. What about the support drivers that will maybe just be in the depot doing the washing overnight? Spare drivers as well.
Do you want me to?
Go on, yeah.
Okay, so we have what we call spare processing within the duty allocation side of the system, and what that will do, and stop me if this if this needs further explanation. It's quite simple. We will give each of those drivers what we call a spare or a show up turn, and that will have a duration, obviously. And should nothing happen, they'll get paid as per your terms and conditions. What we'd like to be able to do is use those drivers as much as we possibly can, so they're not sat on the backside, so to speak. If we were to put any work on top of the existing spare or show up duty, the system is then clever enough to apportion what was work, what was driving, what was standby, what was making cups of tea. You know, you mentioned, you say we can apportion that work appropriately. But then the next clever thing to that is that we're able to report accurately and granularly on that. So then you can almost challenge your supervisors as to why was that particular spare not used when that one should have been, or what was the skill sets of that one utilised when we had to pay somebody else to do it. I don't know if that doesn't answer your question. I'll attack it in a different way.
Okay, I mean, what we have is currently we have a group of routes and X number of drivers allocated to that group.
Mm-hmm.
And the duties are spread amongst that group.
Yeah.
And the additional drivers surplus to the requirements of all the duties are then used as spares. And again, with the system that we currently have at the moment, it's a random process. That means that one driver could be spare one day, another driver the next.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, there's a couple of ways we can handle that. It's exactly the same in most of our clients, that drivers are put on a set of routes, if you like. There's something common in those routes. That's as to how they get grouped. And then we have what we call the spare drivers, and they cover, if someone's sick or absent or whatever. Now, you can decide whether you want to randomly allocate the spare drivers as the duties come in. Of course, you would have to make sure that that's legal and fair and just. Or we do have a point system within the duty allocation system that will monitor who was used last for what. So we can get to a situation where we say it's his turn next, but it certainly doesn't have to be that. The main priority is getting the vehicles out on the road legally, safely and reliably. And at the moment in the UK, we will use any driver that is legal and willing to do so.
Yeah.
I've been hogging it. Has anybody else? got
Just
anything?
technically, I would like to ask, this solution which you are offering, is it also, it is like an on-premise solution, or you offer like cloud-based solution also?
Cloud-based, yes.
It's a cloud-based.
Yes.
Hang on, it can be either.
Okay.
Okay, what is your preference?
Either.
Both.
So
Both.
Yeah, the third option.
No, you may want to put, what is the timeline of implementation?
Well, they were saying before that if we sign the contract 1st of April, 1st of September,
First of
we'll be using it. That's with the training and everything. Yeah.
Yes, I have
That's
a question
right.
regarding the integrations. Do you have an GTFS files integration API and files, and what type of the integration that you are using for the system?
Well, missed the last bit there. Sorry about that. Can you repeat that?
I'm just asking regarding the integrations. Do you think the GTFS file API, and what is the kind of the API that you are? It is an open API, or just you are working individual project? Each project has a specific API.
Yeah. You're right, the individual projects. So we've got a GTFS import already in place in here, which is obviously not on this screen at the moment. But yeah, same again, that will come when we have scope or documentation from yourself of what you'll actually want there. Because we've already designed the framework of all our interfaces, it's a simple case of is making it a little bit bespoke for you, and that's how we managed to get this in place.
You mentioned the driver sign-ins. Did you mention the 2 driver sign-ins, one in the bus and one at depots? Is that 2 totally different systems?
Well, there's actually more than 2. There's actually a sign-on point, if you like a kiosk that you could have in the depot. There's no hardware involved. It's just you'd run that on your standard PC. And you can use any input device then. For example, it can be a keypad or a touch pad or an ID card fob. So that's your kiosk type. We then have a web type sign-in, which can literally have no wires, if you like. It's a tablet that you could put on the wall somewhere, and drivers can go up to that and put a secret number in, and they're signed in. The other one is, as I mentioned during the demo, which is the mobile sign-on, and that, as long as you can get it to a device, for example, a tablet or a smartphone, drivers can sign in on the road. That does, of course, need some more explanation. But we basically geographically ring fence the location where you're expecting them to sign on. And as long as it's within your parameters, and we'll say let's say you've chose the threshold to be within 50 or 100 meters of where you'd expect that driver to be. If they're not there, it'll report back to you, and you can refuse them sign on. If they are where we expect them to be, they'll sign on, and there will be a screen in your depot that will be changing colour appropriately to say that they're signed on time, or if they're late or whatever. Again, all of these parameters are user definable. Very useful, I think, when you're doing something like, I know when Gavin and I worked on the Olympics, mobile sign-on was very useful then, because we didn't actually have a base, did we, at all times, Gav, for the drivers to turn up at.
Yeah, that's the same actually for supervisors, and
Yeah,
you've got the same issue with supervisors that are going to be based in remote sites,
of course. And
things like that.
yeah, and I think that's an excellent time to just point out here that should you choose this solution, I wouldn't just be looking at it for your drivers. You know, if you have a number of people, engineers, administration, supervisors, inspectorate, managers, you can put them all into this system and be monitoring what all of them are doing.
How's I know you also mentioned the tablet as well.
Yes, yeah.
Being more widely used across systems generally?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's more of you get what you see on the screen here, but more of a tablet format, like a thick thumb version of it all. So it will allow a user, for instance, to go anywhere, internet, and log on to the URL and manipulate vehicle workings on the road. So we use it as a planning tool. It's when we, again, go out in the car, for instance, we'll be able to pinpoint stops when we're at that location, and we can virtually design the route in the passenger seat of a car and put that in. And then when you get to the office, it's already there. If you have a team in the office, it's already been built, and you've obviously just applied the information. So yeah, it's definitely a great planning tool if you're coming from scratch.
And they're free of charge with the system, right?
Not the hardware, but yeah. Yeah.
Did I hear somebody swear then?
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Sorry, one more question. Regarding the creating the schedule, so you create the schedule for the week or the month. If a driver changes shift on one of the days, will it then recalculate what he does in the future so that he doesn't go above or below the number of hours he's meant to work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that allocation.
So, I mean, certainly from an allocation point of view, we are tracking what drivers do to the minute. If a driver should do something today, even run late, we're going to factor that into whatever he's done within the legal period that we have to be monitoring him anyway. And when we start to talk to you about what you want your rules to do, then I don't want to say sky's the limit, because it, balancing expectations, etc. But the rules can get as complicated as you want them to.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you completely reschedule during the week?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, you can. Yeah. With the power of what if scenarios, yes, you will always have an active one, which is currently on the road, but then you can always constantly redesign that one as well. And then you can replace it then. So that will go into roster and then straight into the allocation system with a date effective data or a day or a time, and then that will replace then the existing.
I've just got a personal question for you. Did either of you come across Peter Tilling? He was our original planning manager here.
Peter Tilling?
I have not met Peter, no.
No.
Okay, he was came from bus driving background as well.
The rude thing is that if he does, we probably have, and not always had an exchange of names. It's a very incestuous industry, as you'll know, Trevor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
There we go. That was really good. I'm actually quite surprised at how far your system has come and how good it looks. So
Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. Really good. Appreciate it. And I'll ask the guys offline if they want to catch up on another day and ask more questions if we come up with any more. Would you guys be available for that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely sure.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, bye-bye.